Okay, perfect. Okay, so we are covering part 1-4 in our Habits of Health 2.0 book. Health is all about choice. And the very first part talks about how to take control. And I love how Dr. A quotes Robert Fritz with the choice upon which talking about fundamental choice, and that's the choice upon which all other choices rest. So that's kind of the first section, is talking all about fundamental choice and what a fundamental choice is. So some of my kind of takeaways with that, to me, like what it sounded like to me when they talked about fundamental choice was that, like, this is who I am, kind of like he talked about your state of being. So like if my fundamental choice is I'm a healthy person, that's, a decision that I've made, and all my other choices are going to be based around that. So I love how they said fundamental choice means choosing to make this change, not because your husband or wife or healthcare provider wants you to, but because you want to. And to me, I think that also goes beyond that too, not because you think you should, but because you want to. And I think that makes such a big difference with our success. And I love how they said, once you make the choice to be healthy, you've made it your business to act in accordance with your goal. You're taking full responsibility for your actions rather than letting circumstances drive your decisions. You become the author of your own life story. So I love how that gives us back the control, where we don't feel like, I don't have that whole diet mentality of I don't have a choice, like, I can't have that, or I shouldn't do that, or I should do this, or I need to do that. But instead it's like, I want this, and we have the power and we have the control to become who we want to be, and our fundamental choices, we want to be healthy. So it made me think of, we take responsibility, we play above the line. And that's something that we as coaches talk about all the time. I love how they say you have to accept that no one can do it for you. It will always come down to you. And it's so true. Like, don't we see that with our clients? That, ultimately it doesn't matter what we as coaches do as much as we want them to succeed. We can be the best coaches in the world, but ultimately comes down to each, to the individual. So it's up to them. It's up to us for ourselves, right? And how they say this is how we take charge of our lives, by realizing that no matter the circumstances, no matter the temptation, we can do what we know is right. No excuses is what I wrote down for that. So it's, I love the idea of this fundamental choice and really taking responsibility for our health. Does anyone have any thoughts about fundamental choice? Anything else that stood out?
I always think about Dr. A, how he would say, it doesn't matter if you have a hamburger one day, if you keep choosing that over and over and over, it makes a difference. And so just like our habits, one choice isn't going to maybe affect us, but all those little choices that we make add up. And so even think about the one choice and if it's moving you forward or not, I think that's big. And then I also thought about just how to change a habit. If you're making choices that aren't moving forward, I love how you walk through, changing those habits and really point the choices that we're making that are not serving us, and then working on those specific choices, to move us forward, like breaking that down.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, they get into that more, I feel like, when they talk about secondary choices and, how I agree. Like, I love that part too, where they talk about, a single choice isn't going to make you healthy or unhealthy. It's all the little things that add up over time. And so that kind of, moving into, fundamental choice, because, they talk about a fundamental choice to be a non-smoker. That's like a really good example. And then in terms of optimal health, I like the questions that they ask them, kind of to ask yourself, do I want to be optimally healthy? And the funny thing is, reading this book this time, I'm kind of thinking back to the very first time I did the program before I was a coach, and like, what would I have honestly said in answer to these questions versus where I'm at today. And it's kind of cool to see the growth because, I mean, it's one of those things where back, then, do I want to be optimally healthy? Most likely the answer is going to be yes. But, do I want to do all the little steps all the time? Back then, my answer was more no. And I think we run into that a lot. But, if we have made that fundamental choice, then, we're going to make those decisions because that's what we want most. And I like how they, what's it called? They distinguish that as, if you could have it, would you take it? Not, do you think you can, do you think it's realistic, or, is it, going to be easy or whatever? But like, if you could have it, would you take it? And if the answer is yes, then you do want to be optimally healthy. They say, health deserves to be right up there alongside freedom and the pursuit of happiness as one of our most prized possessions. And I mean, that's so true, right? Whenever we're faced sickness, and that's the only thing that matters. I liked how they talked about that. And it's just puts it into perspective, I think, because making the day-to-day choices can be hard. But, when we're thinking about the bigger picture of health and optimal health versus sickness and disease, quality and quantity of life, then, that is the most important thing. It's one of the things that we need to protect. And it makes it easier to make those choices when we think about it in that bigger picture, I think. So he talks about, as long as we're, making optimal health our top priority, our fundamental choice, then it's all possible. So I absolutely love that part. One of the next sections kind of goes into then the macro habits of health.
Could I share something before you move on to the next one? You talked about the fundamental choice of to smoke or not to smoke. That just reminded me something. Amber shared that before, and that really rang true with me. Like, smoking, for example, has never been a struggle for me. I'd already made that choice when I was young that I would never smoke, and so when I'd been to parties or or whatever when I was younger, and people were smoking and offering me that, that was never even, I never even had to think about it. It was just like a choice I'd already made. Mm-hmm. So my goal is to be at the point with my health that I feel the same way about junk food, like chocolate. That's my biggest goal, is to think of why would I eat that? It does not make me feel good. It's not good for my body. So I point that it would be a no-brainer. Why would I even do that? That just kind of is a good example of maybe think about some of your goals, where you want to be with those choices in the future. And that's what I'm working toward over and over and over. And it's going to take me maybe 20 years before I'm at that point. But what habits are we working on that we want to be at that point? Like it is for smoking or whatever that no choice is. Where in regards to health, what is it going to take to get that, with your health?
I love that.
Hey, yeah. I had a little thought. Going along with everything that you guys are saying is just the idea that you're taking over this ownership. And I love the fact that the way it's written, that we are in control, right? Every single choice, is in our control. And we have this power, right? There's so many times we feel powerless. Really, we are powerful. And just to take that ownership back is really freedom. Free, that's where freedom really comes from, is to know that, hey, I have control. This is, me. And each choice that we make, asking ourselves over and over again, why did I make that choice? What was it that caused me to make that choice? Why did I eat that cookie? What was it? And just keep asking yourself why you're making these choices, and really figuring out why do I want that? Is that something that I want? And just this process of continually asking ourselves why. I don't know, it's helped me. There's been times where I'm like, yes, well, I did want to help me take that ownership back. Kept me in the control, kept me in the feet. And I really like that we are free to make choices. And if we make bad choices, there's a reason why we make it. And just to recognize why we made that and be okay with it. That's just what I did in that moment. And then But that doesn't define who I am. In the next moment, I can make a better choice, or I can, I get to decide.
And how does that mindset change for you, change things? Like when you're not in that mindset versus when you are in that mindset, how would you say that makes a difference with your health choices?
It's really just to know that I get to choose, right? Nobody's forcing me either way, right? The whole, like, I get to choose whether I want to smoke or not. It's freeing. That's powerful. Like, why choose not to smoke? Right? It doesn't appeal to me. But there's more layers to that, right? Why do I choose not to? So we're at the beach house with a bunch of friends this week. Lots and lots of food and things. And and I'm watching people eat things. I'm like, I don't really want that. And there's other times where I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds good at the moment. I'm just going to have a small portion. But this idea of why am I choosing to have that at the moment? I want to, that's a new recipe. I really want to enjoy it, and I'm going to choose to have a couple bites of it. Feel good about that. And it makes me feel good and powerful about that decision. Where at other times I'm like, no, I don't really want it. I'm not going to have it. And sometimes I just, sometimes say, I can't have that, or I shouldn't have that. But when you take that control back and say, no, I don't really want it, you're more freeing to walk away from that. Because you made the decision, not the food made the decision for you.
Yeah. No, that's totally true. So I love that. It's just a mind shift, really. Because I think we tend to go into victim mentality sometimes when, diet mentality kind of is victim mentality a little bit sometimes. And so, if we start to go in that direction, we just need to recognize it and have the shift and remember, wait, I'm in control. I get to, I want to, I choose to, because of my fundamental choice, because I know, that each of these little choices is going to take me in one direction or the other. And having that bigger picture in mind, taking back that power, I think makes all the difference. So thanks for sharing, Jen.
That's exactly what Terry Miller shared in her story in this chapter too. Like, I don't know if you guys looked at that I think it's on page 9. Yeah, she talked about how Stop Challenge Choose really helped her. And I even noticed, like, as I go through my journey, there's times where I kind of stop using Stop Challenge Choose. So it's not a habit for me yet, like a really strong habit for me, because it kind of wanes in and out through different times of my life. And so it's a really good reminder for me to say, hey, I need to start using Stop Challenge Choose a lot more, so that I'm more mindful about my choices.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved her story. I thought it fit right perfectly with all this. In the next part where they talk about the macro habits of health, it kind of made me think, obviously going through those are important, but there was one part that stood out that kind of made me think of our role as coaches, where Dr. A says, I'll be your guide, but it's up to you to actually do the work to create optimal health. And isn't that the truth? And I think I need to remind myself sometimes that that's our role as coaches, is we're there to be the guide, but it's important for us to remember and for our clients to know that it is up to them to actually do the work to create optimal health, that we can't do it for them. And that's where I think the chapter before this, was so powerful with, are you ready to make a change? And, the motivation behind that. So he talks about the basic components of a healthy lifestyle. That's what macro habits are. And then listing those: habits of healthy weight management, habits of healthy eating and hydration, healthy motion, healthy sleep, healthy mind. And I like how it says including habits of emotional and personal mastery. So it kind of explains it a little bit beyond just healthy mind. Sometimes when I explain that part to people briefly or say the words healthy mind, I don't know if they know what I'm talking about. Habits of healthy surroundings, and again, goes into people, places, things, including healthy environment, support, relationships, and community. And it's cool that that is important, that's a factor, because it does make a huge difference with all the other areas. I love how he says when integrated, basically these come together to create a healthy lifestyle. When all these critical components come together in an integrated way, then they help you generate and energize a lifestyle transformation. So it's true. I think so often, people will say, well, I want to focus on healthy weight management, but I don't really want to exercise, or, I don't want to work on my healthy mind. I just am focused on my body right now. But people don't realize they all go together. And that's when you're successful, is when you integrate all the areas. He does, emphasize that we usually work on them one at a time, but I mean, does anyone have anything to say about that? It's kind of, usually approached one at a time, but at the same time, it's, integrated. We need them all. Does anyone have any comments about that?
I think that this is kind of how I, at the beginning of my journey, I really focused on just my weight management, just my body, right? But I think I have obviously added that along the way. So I think it's okay if they start with, but sometimes maybe that when they're struggling is when they need to add the next one, because that's, that might be the time. Like, okay, well, I was so excited about working on, my nutrition, and then when that gets a little bit hard, or the temptations come, that's when I remember one of the things that came to me was that I was a boredom eater, and I didn't actually recognize that in the very beginning. I didn't know that was even a thing. And so again, that is working on my healthy mind. And then I added coaching after that. So I started working on, helping others and do that. But, so I think for me, and even with coaching, I remember I was just thinking about this yesterday, that I, in the very beginning, I just was like, okay, I'm going to get these people to do, health assessments, and, just being really honest here. I did not plug into, I did not listen to Tuesday meetings at all, ever. I didn't go to them. And now I'm like, man, I should have been listening to those, which is okay, because again, sometimes it's overwhelming, I think, to just think, oh my gosh, I've got to do all of this at the same time. But I started adding those in, and then, maybe now there's even more I could add in. So I just think that it's okay if they start with one and then move forward to the next one.
Yeah, that's a good example. And I like how you compared it to coaching. I like how they offer, and I actually haven't done this yet, but maybe this isn't the right part for that. Anyway, they talk about going online and doing an assessment of kind of where you are in each area. But I like how they say it's essential you understand where you are now, to create that baseline, and really identify which area you're most interested in changing first. And so it is true, we kind of need to focus on them one at a time. And it's awesome that they're giving tools to help us do that. And I think it's common that most, we're coming from a place where we're wanting to work on the healthy weight management is kind of where it starts. And he says that in the book. Have any of you guys done that online survey yet, and or thought through, your baseline, or not necessarily your very starting point, but where you are now? Because obviously we're all starting from now and then moving forward to creating our optimal health, which I like them identifying that as your best version of you, your healthiest you, not necessarily your healthiest, comparing to, becoming Liz or becoming Karen or whoever, but like your healthiest you. Which areas have you guys decided that you are most interested in changing first? Like which of those macro habits of health? Has anybody thought about that?
Or health assessment, because I did the health assessment online, and I was totally surprised by my results, because being unhealthy or like sick, even maybe. And as I filled out the assessment, he put me in the optimal health category, which totally just made me cry because I wasn't like even expecting to be like above the unhealthy. And I realized that I had been shortchanging myself on some of the fundamental choices that I've been making, like the fundamental choice not to drink or to smoke. Those are huge, huge, huge decisions for your health that I made a long, long time ago that I never wanted to do those things. And they really pay off now. Like, I think some of those fundamental, I've been worried about the little tiny things, the fact that I love donuts so much, as opposed to those really, I'm committed to eating vegetables, and I eat quite a lot of vegetables throughout the day. So that, realization that I really am farther along than I really realized was really empowering for me and really helped me move forward.
Awesome. Thank you. I can't wait to take that. And I saw
it's
that
great.
you post about it and I was like, oh, I wonder what mine's going to be. So that's awesome. What about anybody like, I know in this challenge that they're doing company-wide, has anybody thought about, for me, like thinking about it's hard for me to choose when I want to focus on, because I'm like, I need to work on all of them. But it's become very apparent to me that I really need to focus on that healthy habit of sleep and getting a better routine down, So I like how they talk about structural tension in the next section and really evaluating, where you are now, what your desired outcome is. And then I love how, and again, I think it ties so well into the last chapter, but how they say, instead of what you're running away from, what we're running towards. And when we have that, oh, I want that in our heads, and we know where we are now, it provides that tension to, push forward and to keep going. Anyway, to move us towards that goal. And, for me, I'm just like, oh, I'm realizing I really need to work on my, my secondary choices that I'm making, with going to bed earlier and waking up earlier and setting a good routine for myself and doing those things that Dr. A talks about, because when I haven't slept well, then it affects every other area. It's harder for me to have, a clear mind to be mindful in my choices, to stop, challenge, choose. It's harder for me to, eat healthily. All those, it's harder for me to exercise because I don't have the energy, so it just affects everything else. Let's see. By the way, did you guys I'm curious if anything stood out to you, but I love the little side notes. I love the way that this is set up with, the space to write our notes and, our thoughts, and a couple things that stood out that I think are great tips for us, but also for our clients is, make a list of the reasons you started your journey to optimal health, and remember to pull it out when you need a little positive reinforcement. Just like that's a little cool tip. And find magazine pictures that represent radiant health and put them on your walls to remind you of your goals. I love those little things. Anyway, so hopefully you've been, highlighting some and that we're all gonna try to do some of those if we haven't already. But going to structural tension, what were some people's thoughts about structural tension? I know I had commented direct visual way to compare your current reality to your desired goals. That's kind of what it is. Focusing on what you're creating. And I like how he says it's not positive thinking, but a matter of writing and visualizing where you're going, thereby creating the magical tension that needs resolution. And then I think one of my favorite things was, as you move forward, your current reality will change, which is true. We've all experienced that. You can use these charts as a roadmap to help you understand where you are in relation to your goal at any point and give you feedback on your progress. Along the way, you'll discover, learn, invent, and install daily activities to move you to your desired outcome. I love the idea of visualizing because, we have a start point, we have an, end goal in mind, that optimal health, and we're always, moving, and it's kind of changing. But what am I trying to say? Anyway, I love that having the visual helps me to see if I'm not, there yet, which I think it's easy to get down on ourselves, like, oh, I'm so far away still from my goal. But recognizing the steps we're taking to move towards it and really, realizing, okay, I'm moving towards my goal. So I am succeeding, or that is a victory, even if I'm not there yet. I just think the visual of it makes a huge difference. Anyone have any thoughts about structural tension?
I'll share something. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just to kind of go back with the well-being assessment that you do, how you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. A lot of times we get hard on ourselves, like, oh, I'll never be a 10, So one thing to do is go through and look at what I'm lowest number at, or, if that can spark interest in improving, like something you really want to work on. So for you, sleep. And let's say that you're like a 4 with sleep. I wouldn't say like, okay, what do you have to do to be a 10? But I'd say, Cheryl, how can we move you to a 5? What would that look like? So that we're taking those smaller steps. The same thing with structural tension. How can I become, perfect overnight? That's impossible. So like, okay, what are those baby steps that are going to get me there? What am I going to start on first? How can I move up 1 or 2 numbers? And what would that look like? So kind of envisioning, what it would look like at that point. So kind of taking those baby steps. So that's what I do with clients. I have them take that well-being assessment. We just pick like one thing in each area, and then we talk about, okay, what looks like if it were 1 or 2 numbers higher? What would need to change? And just start from there.
Ooh, that's good. Thank you, Liz. That's helpful for me personally, and to help my clients better. Awesome. I'm going to wrap up so Angela can talk, and we started late, I just realized. But lastly, it just goes over secondary choices being those daily choices and small disciplines. And I like how he identifies the difference between, secondary choices, which are our daily actions that lead to our, contribute to our primary choices, which are those, foundational macro habits of optimal health, and developing those, which lead to creating that fundamental choice of being optimally healthy, an optimally healthy person. Anyway, and so of course he gives examples like, a 30-minute walk, healthy low glycemic dinner, going to bed at 10 p.m. Like those are secondary choices. Those are habits of health. What's it called? That are going to help us, create that optimal health. So let's see. Oh, I love how he talks about, we live in a society that's focused on instant results. My husband and I talk about this all the time. But the truth is that the process of creating health takes time in the real world. And so that's where I think we need to help ourselves in our mindset a lot. And we need to help our, clients to understand that. And it comes back to kind of what Liz was talking about with, one little choice isn't going to make a big difference, but, it's the daily choices that we do day in and day out that's going to determine the habits that we're creating, if they're habits of health or habits of disease, and that it takes time. We're not going to have an instant result. And let's see. Yeah, our small, almost insignificant daily choices are the underlying power of the habits of health transformational system. So it kind of gives you more of a pat on the back, hooray, when I make that choice to choose the healthy option versus the dessert. And seriously, give yourself that pat on the back and celebrate it. Same with your clients, because it is so true that every single day you're doing that, it makes a huge difference. So anyway, love this chapter. Angela, do you want to go ahead and talk about how, if we run out of time, because we started 10 minutes late, we can hop back on, but talk about how it kind of related to what we learned in the LifeBook, right? Yeah.
Yes. So I love the LifeBook because it's just really applying what we're learning in the textbook. And I don't know if you read them, they kind of reference you back to each other. So I really love how it's so integrated. But in the LifeBook section, element 3, it just was so clear how you can choose that. Make those structural tension charts for yourself for your current goals, and also how you can start putting in habit loops. So what your cue, your routine, and what your rewards are. And one of the things I noticed about these habit loops is that the reward is not a treat. So So when he said reward, I was like, oh, I get to treat myself. And I was like, oh no, it's not a treat. It's an internal, like natural consequence kind of reward. So like, because the cue might be my smartphone alarm, which is helping me to learn a new habit. So I might have to set an alarm, or I might have to have some external cue to remind me to do this new habit. And when I have that new cue, then I'm going to do the thing. So when my smartphone alarm goes off to eat, then I'm going to eat my fueling. But the reward is that I feel full, or that I feel satisfied because I have something healthy, or some internal thing, or I'm happy because I'm eating something healthy. It's not like my reward for doing this is now I get a piece of candy. So it's a total different kind of way of thinking about rewards, which I'm so excited about, because I think those internal rewards, or those few things, are just so important. So that's pretty much the main thing. I don't know if we need to jump back on, because really the main thing was just paying attention to those habit loops, and then also just the micro habit of health routines. Because when you set up a micro habit, and then you also, when on the days when you have more motivation, you do a little bit extra, then that sets kind of gives you, over consistency with time, you just move forward. So there's just a few charts there that I think are really awesome. And all of these add up to helping you see a better, bigger version of yourself. So those habit loops are like so awesome to kind of plug into. And that's pretty much it, because as you practice with those habit loops and the consistency mark, then you kind of push yourself forward and